The last few months I've had a few crazy breakthroughs about identities and different things that I was holding on to that weren't serving me. So some of those things was, I realized as I was becoming more successful in my 20s, I started to create the identity that I was successful. But I realized that might sound like an element of self-esteem, but I really realized that that is actually a toxic mentality that I was holding on to, because I was filtering through my actions through this idea of, would a successful person do this? And it wasn't like this cognitive thing that I was thinking about, but in the background, that was like this identity that I held on to. And when you release that identity and replace it with, would this action that I'm doing be something that I'm proud of? Would an action taker do this? These are internal identities that can't be broken, because you can't have that taken away from you. Your success or your identity around success could be broken if your business fails or whatever it is. But if you're an action taker, you can always be an action taker. Another example is identifying as good looking. You can start to slowly think that you're good looking, and you could be like, well, that's healthy self-esteem. But really, are you holding on to this inner monologue on your subconscious level saying, would a good-looking person do this, for example? And then you're trying to hold on to that identity as you age and as your physicality changes. So potentially a healthier mentality would just be, do I feel internally beautiful? And do I feel like proud about the person that I am and expressing that in the world? And that can't be taken away from you. It doesn't matter what happens to your physicality. So those are a few identities that I was realizing I was slowly building in the back of my mind, and working through those and releasing them was really helpful for me. Another massive thing that I recently learned was, I think a lot of us have toxic habits. These things that we fall to do just to start to burn time and to kind of escape. For some people it's smoking weed, some people it's drinking, some people it's YouTube, some people it's video games, some people it's porn addiction. It can be all different types of things. And often with these addictions, they're things that you get value out of in the moment, but you don't really feel proud about the actions that you're doing. And for me, the two that I was falling into a trap was video games and YouTube. So I was playing like games like 10 minutes every second day. It doesn't sound like a lot. I was watching YouTube for maybe like an hour before I went to sleep. And I'd say, well, this is educational. Hey, I have a YouTube channel. There's value here. And there's all these stories that I was telling about myself to go, well, even though I'm not necessarily stoked about the amount of time that I'm watching and spending time with YouTube, I have this story. But if I realize that with a lot of our toxic habits, it's really like we're putting something toxic into our brain, and it takes days to release that. If you're addicted to YouTube, for example, and you watch one video, then your brain's still processing and thinking about the video and creatively solving the video and thinking about the other suggested videos and thinking about the next video that's coming out. So you've kind of started your brain in this loop around problem solving for something that's not necessarily driving value for you. And the other thing is, you've got this limited amount of dopamine that you have every day, and you've spent it on this addictive habit when you could have replaced that with something that would have been more fulfilling. And so I think a lot of these things, it's kind of like if you are eating McDonald's every day and there's no amount of exercise that you could do to make your body feel amazing if you're fueling it with something poorly. And it's the same with what we put into our brain. There's no amount of meditation and self-help books and psychology that we can do if we're feeding it, a ton of social media and a ton of YouTube, and we're just getting it in this like addicted, anxiety-ridden, dopamine-reduced state. So really realizing that the 15 minutes of YouTube or the 15 minutes of video games is actually 5 days of your brain not functioning right. And when you think about it in that frame, then you can start to say, instead of I'm going to take a week off, I'm going to take a month off, what about taking a lifetime off? I know that sounds pretty crazy, and there's all these stories of why we want to hold onto a lot of these addictions. But that's the thing that I'm challenging myself for. And my linchpin negative habit is actually YouTube. And so it's funny because I'm a YouTuber right now and producing a video. So I'm allowed to listen to YouTube. I'm just not allowed to visually watch YouTube, because when I watch it, that's when I get addicted, and that's when it really messes with my dopamine. And if I can't watch it, then I'm not really drawn to it like I would be if it was just the audio. So that's something that I'm trying to do from the last 2 months to all of the end of 2022 and potentially for the rest of my life. So I'll see how I go. I'm not saying that I'll be perfect. The other caveat in my rule is I'm allowed to watch it with friends. Friends are over, and I'm not going to be like leaving the room if they're watching a video. The other thing is I've removed Netflix, TV, movies, video games, YouTube, all these things. And so when I start to remove those toxic habits from my life, and they're not necessarily crazy toxic, they're just things that don't necessarily represent the most proud version of myself. And now I start to have creative mental capacity to do something else in that time. So what do? I start drawing, painting, doing music production, working on a new business, working on a new investment, reading books, calling up old friends, going for walks, doing courses. There's all of these exciting things that I start to do. My brain is now like problem solving for things that I'm really proud about. I also just start to do more around the house, like, oh yeah, I should fix that on my car. I should clean this. Like I should go to the dentist, whatever it is. Your brain just starts doing the things that you probably should be doing more because you have the energy and capacity to take on more. The other crazy thing is you just start to feel really proud and excited about yourself. And then you have this energy and capacity to take on more. Even like socially, people like gravitate to you more. So it's pretty amazing. The other kind of big thing that I've reflected on is in life, I think, and I've observed this a lot, there's a lot of people that are highly motivated by chasing this first mountain. And the first mountain is a goalpost that we set for ourselves. It might be financial freedom. It might be to get fit because then maybe you'll get a girlfriend, or maybe it'll be getting a girlfriend, or getting married, or having a child, or getting the promotion, or going on the holiday, or building the company at a certain level, right? They're like these goals that we feel like are going to really add a lot of value to our life. Sometimes we're also moving away from pain. We want to show our dad wrong. We want to show our friends wrong, whatever it is. So we've created this motivation that creates the kind of daily action that we're kind of proud of, and we're pushing towards this goal. The weird thing is, once you achieve that goal, you can often hear people feeling depressed, and I can actually relate to this. I had this big goal for my main company. I was driving it really aggressively. I really wanted to hit this goal. And then once I hit it, I was like, okay, now what? And I could just 10x the goal, but it just felt purposeless. Like there was a number that I wanted to get to, financially and take the business. And then I was like, okay, it felt like I was arbitrarily choosing a goal and I couldn't connect to that goal. And I loved the energy and the passion that I had for life when I was driving towards that. But then I felt like I was floating around. So I would set a goal and I would push for those goals, but it didn't feel like in perfect alignment. And there was something that was missing with my goal setting. And so for some people, they just keep setting another first mountain, and the first mountain gets higher and higher. They're like, okay, cool. I did 10 million. I want to do 100 million. Okay. I slept with this girl, I want to sleep with that girl. Whatever it is, I won this Nobel Prize, I won this Nobel Prize, I had this bestseller, I want to get this bestseller, right? There's this kind of, this thing that we're kind of constantly thinking, well, maybe this will make me happy, or maybe this will get me in a state where I'm motivated again. But what I realized is, you can keep setting these bigger first mountains, but there's a second mountain that never ends. And that mountain is when you realize that the goal that you're setting is totally arbitrary, and when you achieve that goal, nothing amazing will happen. So all the goal is a challenging vision for you in the future that is inspiring, that creates the daily action that you're proud of in yourself every single day. So it's kind of like a confusing concept, but essentially, if you set that goal, okay, cool, I want to take my company to 100 million a year, right? I know that achieving that goal will not do anything, right? Like maybe there's cool people that I meet on the way. Maybe I'll get to work with some amazing companies. Maybe I'll give back to the world, and that will make me feel good. But the thing that will really feel good is the person that I have to be every day in the execution of that goal, right? I'll have to be disciplined. I'll have to learn a lot. I'll have to network with really inspiring people. I'll have to build an amazing community and culture. I'll have to give back because it's core to our culture and attracting the right people. So the person that I'll become every single day is the true thing that why we're setting that ambitious goal. And once you fully accept that, then you realize that energy that you're holding on to and that passion for life, it's forever. And it's also about how you show up every single day. And I feel like that's a really healthy mentality to hold on to that you can then bring into your day-to-day actions. Some cool things about when you are in alignment, right? When your ideas are kind of in harmony. So sometimes there's like this disharmony where you're like, okay, I'm watching the YouTube, but I'm not sure if I'm proud about it, but it's adding a lot of value. So there's this dichotomy that exists. And so if you kind of come up with, okay, this story is not serving me, or this is the truth of the situation, and this is what I'm proud about, you can start to find more harmony in your life from your mission, your whys, your values, your actions, your habits, your goals. Everything's kind of more in alignment. And I don't think anyone's perfectly in alignment, but you can find this deeper alignment. And when you're in alignment, you just have more excitement for life. And there's an infectious energy that you actually create. And I think eventually, if you're living with like passion and excitement and purpose and creating and building, then people will be inspired by that energy and being around you. And so there's a selfless element to being in that state as well, to like, be a positive influence to the people around you as well, which is pretty exciting. And you also are a magnet for people that want to be more like that. So it's pretty cool when you're living in that energy. So given all of that, and that's my mindset coming into 2022, how do I try to keep that mindset? So a couple of things that I'm doing is, one, I'm coaching 1 or 2 people at any given time. And that way it will force me to have to think and introspect about life and mindset and the traps that other people can fall into. And by me teaching it, it will force me to reflect on myself and be in integrity to the things that I teach. Because if I'm teaching someone to say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this habit because it's not serving you, and then I go and do something else, then I'm not in integrity to that. So it'll force that level of comprehension and integrity. The other thing is, I've set the goalpost as a bigger commitment. I think previously I'd be like, cool, let me do no alcohol for 90 days. Let me do no YouTube for 90 days. Let me, do 30 books this year, whatever it is. Often the goal post is just like 1 year, but it wasn't like, 90 days. But it wasn't like I was truly mentally committing for a lifetime. And I remember when I became vegetarian, it was like, this is just the thing that I'm doing for a life. And when you have that mentality of like, hey, it's not a window, it's not a phase, it's not a time, it's just something that you're probably going to do for the rest of your life. Sure, new information might come and things might change. But when you have that mentality, then you're not using discipline, you're using integration. And when you use integration, it's like when a really healthy, fit person is avoiding, the donuts and eats the salad. It's like they're not using discipline to not eating the donuts. It's just not in their mentality and the story that they tell themselves. They just know that that's not something that they want, and they're excited about moving towards the things that they want. Discipline is a useful tool. I don't think that you should avoid the use of discipline, but if you have integration, then you can really push yourself super far in life, and it just feels beautiful and effortless, and like you're just flowing through life. So that is my mindset for 2022. This is my first video in a long time. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let's go crash 2022. Let's go.